Hello, my name is Christoph Bergdorfer. I am leading the team here at Gravio here in Singapore, and Gravio is a connectivity platform, but I'll get to that in more detail later. First, I want to talk to you about how IoT is likely to change your industry too, and what it means and how you can tackle that and shape your thinking around these paradigm shifts that are currently coming our way. So first of all, what is IoT? IoT stands for the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things is a network of things that are connected via some form of communication protocol and that allows them to communicate with each other. Now, in order to understand the potential of the Internet of Things, it is interesting to look at what the internet was originally designed to do. And the original internet can be considered as the internet of humans. The reason I am saying that is when the internet originally got incepted, it was mainly used to improve human communication, whether it is email, where people would share and exchange thoughts and ideas via a written text. Chat is done in a similar way, where you just have it a little bit more synchronous. A website which came later in the 1990s via the World Wide Web is also a way of humans communicating with other humans. Same could be said with, of course, voice communication that has been going through the internet as well. So if you look at the internet of humans and think it a step further, you will inevitably end with thinking of the internet as a network that not only connects and improves how humans communicate with each other, but also how things communicate with each other, or how things, our items, devices, which can range from tiny little sensors all the way to self-driving cars, how to make them communicate more efficiently with each other or with humans as well. Now, in order to understand the potential of the Internet of Humans, we can have also a look at the human species. The human species is arguably the most successful species on our planet at the moment. And this is not me who are saying that, who I'm saying that. This is the theory or the thesis of Yuval Harari, a famous author who has written the book Sapiens. And he says the human race or the human species is the most successful species on the planet because of their ability to cooperate. Yeah, they have means that can form groups. They can communicate with each other. They can build on top of each other's knowledge, on top of each other's wisdom, and they can form groups. They can cooperate. They can achieve things together, right? And the basis of that is good communication. They need to be able to share knowledge. They need to be able to build on top of each other's learnings. And if you think of that, one of the key elements of our species, or the key skills, super skills of our species, is the ability to have language to communicate, right? And having language allows us to shape, form ideas and thoughts, and then also exchanging them with each other, not only to communicate between individuals, but also communicate between large quantities of individuals, masses, and shape societies. So in order to do that, let's have a look at communication of humans in a little bit more detail. We have, if you look at our head, you can say that, we have input devices in our head, which are our ears, our nose, our eyes, and we have output devices, which is the mouth mainly. Of course, we have many different sensors. I mean, any organism is basically just a blob of sensors and sensory input data, and the data gets then processed in the brain. But we're now focusing on, two very simple ones, which is probably just the ears that can take language, and the mouth that can then, transmit language, which is one of the key communication means of humans. Now, if we consider humans as kind of processing machines, which have inputs and outputs, and the processing machine or a processing engine in between that kind of takes this data, infers learning, and gets does actions based on triggers, we can actually say it's not too dissimilar from a computer also, right? So computer has also input devices, and for the longest time, the input devices of the computers has been just the keyboard, just the way that people enter characters into a system has been for a long time the single most important input device. And then it has output devices, which obviously, in this case, the screen, perhaps some floppy disk drive as well, and some speakers. So some of the first rudimentary inputs and output devices. So we probably can argue, like, if you look back into the 1980s, when these desktop computers were very new, they are in no way comparable to what we have nowadays. So what happened over time, of course, the amount of output devices and the amount of input devices has increased. And of course, nowadays, we have many more devices available because of the advancements of technology. But one of the probably most important also interfaces that allows our computers to get enabled for new inputs and outputs was the computer's ability to connect to larger networks, to connect to larger networks, or even the internet, because this opens a whole new way of how a computer can process inputs or can create outputs as well. And of course, nowadays for us, the internet is very we cannot think of not having the internet anymore. But when it was introduced new, it was a big novelty. And I remember when my computer was connected to the internet for the first time, and I started browsing the World Wide Web. I discovered a whole new way of how computer can be useful in many different ways to communicate with others. Now, needless to say, technological advances such as Moore's law, which says that computer power is exponentially increasing, so chips are getting smaller and yet more powerful and cheaper to produce. These advancements in technology have enabled us to have much more powerful devices, much smaller devices, and also much cheaper devices, allowing us, access and enabling us to access these kind of information and this kind of technologies in a very commoditized fashion. Now, if we think this trend on, and also if we compare it how species are more successful as and when they have more sensory input, we can consider that in the future we don't necessarily need anymore just a screen as an output, or one of the few outputs. We can actually do completely without, and we can just take many different inputs from many different sensors and process them in a computer that is taking all of this information and all of this data for further processing. Now, one thing that is very interesting in this particular case is that there's two ways how you can take sensor data. One way is you just take the sensor data on site and then you process it on site. This is often referred to as edge computing because it happens at the edge of a network. This is what you can see on the screen here is an edge computer. So this is one way of processing sensory data. The other way that is also very common, of course, is cloud system. So what you would do is, the sensory data would go through a gateway, at the edge, but the gateway would do nothing more than just forwarding the sensor data all the way to the cloud, where then it is being processed, and when then the decisions and the triggers are being made or executed in order to make sense of the data or store the data or do some actuation or trigger some software processes based on various data. Now, both edge computing and cloud computing have their advantages and disadvantages. We believe at Gravio that in the future, a hybrid solution where you use the right horses for the right courses is important to optimize the way that these node computing, we call them node computing networks, efficiently work together and can process information and data in an efficient way. So there's many different sensors on this screen, from GPS devices to hand scanners, various environmental sensors, rain sensors, distance sensors, presence sensors. But one sensor that I like to talk about, which is becoming increasingly more important, is the artificial eye as an input, right? So here you can see there's the camera. Over there is the camera system as well. And what that means is we can increasingly better take just camera feeds of a camera and use a layer of artificial intelligence or computer vision to detect what's happening inside that picture or inside that series of pictures, and then use a camera like a sensor. The reason why this is very important going forward is because many of these small sensors, they require hardware and they require power, they require many different maintenance things, and they are sometimes difficult to produce, whereas a camera system is just a software layer, right? You just put a camera there, and then a camera plus artificial intelligence is able to detect things that is visually detectable and trigger software processes from it. And the example that I always make is if you have a car parking lot and you want to count how many cars are parked in a car park, you can either put, a sensor on every car park, which needs its own maintenance and batteries and things like that, or you can have a smart camera system that can actually just put in one corner, and you can train it to identify in which lot there's a car, and therefore the software takes on the tasks of finding out which car lot is free and which one is not free. So this is just an example of a software sensor, software-based sensor, which I feel will be increasingly powerful in the future as AI and machine learning, computer vision, or even visual question and answer, where you can just send a picture and then you can interrogate what's on the picture. You can ask the AI to analyze the picture. These kind of technologies, as these advance, this will be much more interesting sensor as an input device as well. So the camera systems. Now, having said that, of course, we've been talking about cloud and edge. Also, in the cloud side, there have been a lot of advancements, and many of the companies that provide software service or SaaS products nowadays have APIs. API stands for Application Programming Interface. In a way, you can think of an API as a system that allows computers and machines to talk to each other in a standardized fashion. It's like me talking in English to you, you understanding English, so we have the same protocol. We can communicate with each other. So APIs like that are being increasingly standardized, enabling more and more devices and more computers and software systems to communicate efficiently with each other. So a system should not only be able to connect to various sensors as inputs, it should also be able to connect to various cloud systems as input. So you can basically combine the two and harvest the power of both systems and connect the dots by both. One of the most important things, of course, nowadays is the collection of data. Whether you collect data from sensors, from the real physical world, things from camera system where you can collect feeds or whatever the AI detects, all the way to data points that are generated by other pieces of software. It's always very helpful to keep track of the data and collect the data, because over time, data can be distilled and can be refined into information. There's many, you must have heard many times that data is the new oil. And the reason people say data is the new oil can be refined into many different products, into plastics, into gasoline, into jet fuel, into, you name it. There is a lot of things you can refine oil into, and crude oil. And data is a little bit similar, right? You can turn data into information. You can derive information and turn it into knowledge, and you can turn knowledge into wisdom. So there's this very famous DIKW pyramid that you can see in the background here, which means data, information, knowledge, wisdom pyramid, which says that you can turn all these data into different layers of value within an organization. But the key is, of course, that you collect as much data as possible, because you never know what the data can be refined into in the future, potentially, right? Nowadays, it's being used a lot for machine learning and to creating new AI models. But maybe when people started to collect this data 20 years ago, they may not have been aware or even realized that this will be very, very, the last 20 years of data they collected could be very, very useful for this kind of information. Then there's this pyramid, but there's also another slide that I find a little bit more entertaining. It actually says the same thing. Data are just points. Information is if you have an additional layer of the information on top, so you can classify the different types of data, for example. Knowledge is the next step, is when you start connecting different informations. Insights is when you can see how certain things are relevant to each other or related to each other, which are kind of seemingly distant. Wisdom is when you start, finding the root, how to connect them, and knowing these things, like having gone through a puzzle. And then, of course, there's always, if you take it a step too far, you can actually end up with conspiracy theories. But that's for another conversation. I think one of the key messages that I want to convey in this presentation is the more you connect your business, the more connected your business will be. Like with the species of humans, the more you can build on top of each other, the more successful it is likely to be. So I feel that today's magic, the magic of our time, is not about digital transformation. Many people talk about digital transformation these days. They think like, we need to do digital transformation here, digital transformation there. Me personally, I am not a big fan of this term digital transformation. For me, digital transformation was when they started to put paper ledgers into kind of digital databases, but that's not really very powerful anymore. That's not very common anymore. Anyone has their data more or less digitally available these days. What is really the magic of our time, in my view, is the connectedness transformation, is thinking about a business, not the way that it's digital or not digital, but the way that it's connected or not connected. Are the various inputs and outputs that this business or this industry creates connected in a meaningful way? Are the dots being created, dots being connected, creating value for the right people at the right time? How can we be more interconnected, but also how can we connect to other businesses so we can basically start leveraging each other's potential and creating more powerful synergies and cooperations with each other? So, like what made the human species so successful, which is being able to cooperate, being able to communicate, having great ways of exchanging thoughts and ideas, I believe businesses that have abilities to connect or being interconnected between inputs and outputs, even internally or externally and internally, will have substantial benefits over other ones. It will be substantially more robust, will be substantially more valuable to leverage each other's potential. So this is also the reason why we built the platform Gravio, right? With Gravio, everything is about connecting the dots. We want to make sure that businesses such as yours are enabled to take various inputs and outputs, create triggers, create actions, create data adapters, data sources, and just connect them without any programming knowledge. We really want to commoditize this idea of being able to take inputs and outputs, connecting them, triggering them, creating actions like little programs that allow you to make your business more interconnected or even automated at the end of the day. So we use prefabricated connectors to do that, or prefabricated actions and templates that you can use. And one of the differences to our competing products is that we actually do it not only in the cloud, you can actually do this at the edge. For example, if you have a system that does not want to be connected to the internet at all, you can actually deploy it on one of these small edge computers that we saw before to create your own, IoT or, connectivity applications at the edge. So we built Gravio to help you with your connectedness transformation. And it should help you in your operations, and it should also help you in connecting your business applications. And the ultimate goal is to help you automate, to help you integrate, but also to help you innovate by finding new ways to connecting the dots. So that's it from my side. If you have any questions, you can contact me under this email address. It was a pleasure talking to you, and thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day.